Well, staying with the theme, rock planting, this chapter we're going to cover root over rock. I think it's one of the most popular styles. People want to have root over rock, but it's not easy to accomplish. Well, first of all, depending on where you are. I'm in zone 9, it gets very hot, so the plant selection is very important because as it gets hot, the rock gets warm and it stays warm so that delicate plants don't do well as a root over rock. So I have a lot of Chinese elms because I know for sure Chinese elms work and they thrive in the heat. This one came out pretty good. So this is an example what could. I think I've only been working on this 4 or 5 years. And then I think when we get around to explaining how I do most of this, it makes sense. But it's finding the rock and the plant at the same time that will match together. And that's the hard part. You could have a nice plant, you could have a nice rock, but if they don't match together, it will never become a root over rock planting. Okay, take a look at this. This is a Chinese elm, root over rock, and it was started a little bit over a year ago, year and 1 month. And what it was a root cutting, meaning there was no greenery at all. It was just a piece of root, okay? And then the tape is holding it down. Well, this is the part that becomes the root over rock right here, right? You can see that it's straddling that. And I wanted it closer to the rock, so I used the tape to hold it down. You see this gap in between here? I don't know, right in here. See, you can see. Too many people spent too much effort trying to get that tight, which is a good effort, but the other way to look at it, if you let this thing grow and this thing fattens up, right, the root, then it will eventually touch the rock. And that's what you want, is the root to touch the rock. And so rather than spending a lot of energy trying to get this thing tight on there, I usually feed heavy and trim, constantly trim and make it grow fast. That way I could get to the finished product just as fast as people that spent a lot of time pushing on this and everything else. I guess it's a matter of individual style, but I like to have my tree close to the rock. Other people, they just want to show this off and they have this tree that's so tall that you don't know where the eye should go. So I usually keep mine close to the rock. And this being a Chinese elm, it will grow fast. So this young state, I feed it heavy so that it needs constant pruning and kind of guide it along. But primarily I'm trying to get everything to fatten up so that it looks like it's attached to the rock, if that makes sense to you. Okay, so like I said, this is just about a year old from the time I planted as a root cutting. Now, Chinese elm root cutting is about 90% success rate. So to me, this is the fastest, easiest way to do it. When you have the root, you just go through your rock collection and then find the right combination and attach it. Okay, this one here is a little bit over 1 year, 1 year and 2-3 months. And so it looked like I used the tape and then I used the string to change that angle Probably did it after it came out of, well, not dormancy, but when they started to leaf out. And what I'm going to do next, okay, what I'm going to do is cut it off. Okay, why? Because I want it to have a close relationship to the rock, right? So this way it stays close relation to the rock. It kind of goes up this way. See how the movement goes this way, and then it'll probably make it go in that direction. But I'm going to be feeding these heavy so that it will grow constantly. And see this gap right in here? Those are the stuff that too many people spend too much time trying to get it shoved on tight and putting muck and everything else. When if you make this grow fast, this will fatten up and it will attach to the rock. So that's been my strategy. Okay, so this is the second example from a root cutting. So a little bit over a year and about 2-3 months, I think, on the tag said. And so I'll put plenty of feed, let it grow. And like I was saying, Chinese elms like the heat. Well, this kind of came out, it was a couple years ago. By coincidence, there was a couple people that came in and says, I need to find a root over rock. I says, there's no such thing as a root over rock. So, I told them that you had to go look for it. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, I have a bunch of root over rock. Except that most people cannot visualize the potential use. So this one here, what I did was, well, what makes this a root over rock is that it has a flat bottom to make it fit into a shallow tray like this, right? And then the other thing that most people cannot visualize how to use it. Now, I'm using pipe cleaners to suggest how the tree could look. Of course, it's almost useless because can you find a tree that have that root pattern, right? But that's what I've been trying to do is figure out how to help people accomplish their goal. So even if they bought this combination, which got a little expensive because these trays are the old Japanese ones from the 1970s and earlier, so they're quite expensive. The rock, not so much because it's just locally found rocks, right? But to combine it like this, it did get a little pricey, but I think some people that want it, I think could afford this, something like that, right? So anyway, this is a potential for root over rock set. Okay, here is a root over rock without being a set. You see, it's got this concrete base that makes it flat so that this can fit into a shallow tray. To me, that defines what a root over rock is. See? So how would you try to do that? Well, not always easy to find potential. This one is more or less natural occurring. The only thing that is different is I put a base on it, but you can't put a big base because most of the time it goes into a shallow tray. So anyway, this is an example of a root over rock. And once again, you've got to find the right plant at the right time. Okay, I like to end the chapter in a positive note. So you're going, where am I going to find these rocks that you're talking about? Well, if you were a landscaper like me and I was visiting all these places that had rocks, and every time I saw something, I bought it, right? So I have 50 years of collecting rocks from here and there, natural and from purchasing. Well, we did this chapter on making your own root over rock. And this is just cement, sand, and coloring. And so that, like this one here, I think if you have something that goes in like this, and then create your tree on top, that would work. And it has a flat bottom because we did it on a flat plywood with plastic sheeting, right? So it's always got a nice flat bottom. Same thing with this one here. So maybe this one here, it could be over here, it'll straddle that, and one of the roots will follow this, come in here, go like this, and go like that, right? It might deviate and come this way. You know, a number of possibilities. So when you're making these, you just put a bunch of crevices like that. But, okay, so these two here, well, I made about a couple dozen of them last year. And in about 3 to 5 years, they start to weather. And then with any luck, the moss starts growing. And I swear, I've even tricked myself into thinking these were natural. Originally, I was just looking for a solution for people that have no access to natural rocks. But the more I work with these, the better I'm beginning to like it. So anyway, this is another possibility. And the trick is to have plenty of root over rocks on hand, because it depends on when you're working on the plant material and it has the potential, you have to match it with the right rock. Now you get the right rock and trying to match it with the plant, that's even more difficult. But you have to have plenty of both on hand to get it to match. Anyway, it's a tough things to do unless you're like me and you got 1,000 rocks sitting around and then a couple thousand plants that you're working on per year, okay? Anyway, so this has been a chapter on root over rock planting. So we'll get to another subject real soon. See you again real soon in another chapter.